Hi, I'm former Buffalo Bills wide receiver Don Beebe, and you're listening to Nate and the Fellas on Circling the Wagons podcast on the Buffalo Rumblings podcast network. Because nobody circles the wagons like the Buffalo Bills. Go Bills.
Where else would you rather be than right here, right now?
Hey, hey, let's go Buffalo. Hey, hey, let's go Buffalo.
The Bills make me wanna shout.
Welcome to the Circling the Wagons podcast, a podcast discussing the Bills all year round with interviews, news, recaps, and insightful fan discussion. Most times. Here's your host and lifelong Bills fan, Nate.
Hey Bills fans, welcome to another episode of Circling the Wagons, a Buffalo Rumblings podcast. I am your host, Nate. Thank you guys so much for joining us on another training camp episode where we will discuss major training camp storylines thus far in the past week since we've last talked to you. We're going to talk about biggest surprises so far in camp. There's only 4 more practices of training camp, which is insane. I feel like training camp lasted longer as a kid growing up. I feel like it was just, John was texting that to me, to us earlier, and I was just like, wow, like I thought there were more than just 4 practices left. I thought we went to it's already a week into August, but I figured we'd go into the 3rd week of August. I don't know why I thought that. But anyway, we're going to talk about that, the biggest surprises, and then we'll end the episode on the red versus blue helmets. If you guys had seen clips or screenshots or any sort of video or websites talking about Josh Allen, they showed him in a blue helmet on this last Friday night. Or was it Saturday night? I can't remember. The blue and red, it's Friday night, the blue and red practice at Highmark Stadium. Last year at this time, he used a red helmet. This year, he used a blue helmet. We're going to discuss which ones are better and why. That's always a fun conversation. But first off, this episode is brought to you by the Twin Spires Sportsbook at Del Lago. If you're in the Western New York, Central New York, Downstate New York, Upstate New York, Central New York, Southwest New York, wherever you are, check out the Twin Spires Sportsbook at Del Lago at the Del Lago Resort and Casino. It's a great time. This is such a fun time, fun part of the season to go there because there's a lot of things going on. The food's great. It's such a cool atmosphere. You guys will enjoy it. If you go there, definitely tag us in a tweet or social media post, and we'll retweet that out. We've been doing that lately, and it's been a lot of fun. So I'm joined by my co-hosts, John and Mike. John, I'll start with you. How's it going, man?
Going well. It's football again, right? We just had the Hall of Fame game. I'm excited to see some preseason games at some point. I don't know if I'll be able to watch any of them live this year, but I will make a good attempt to see them at some point. But yeah, regular seasons, it's a month away. I'm ready to go.
Yeah. I didn't watch any of that Hall of Fame game. I'm going to be 100% honest. I did not watch. I mean, Aaron Rodgers didn't even play a snap, did he? I don't think he did.
I wouldn't.
You're like, I didn't really watch.
I saw a quarter of it, the second quarter. He looked, him, I could see him being a coach. Him with the headset, talking to the quarterback, walking up on the side. He looked like the part, didn't he?
Is that all it takes, just to be able to wear a headset and talk? He could be a coach, man. He wore the headset. He wore the hell out of that.
He
headset.
looked into it, though. Is my point. He I'm thinking that might be something he might consider after playing.
Ooh, maybe. It's funny. I always have this weird thing where I like Aaron Rodgers, but then some things kind of annoy me about him. I respect the fact that he doesn't talk to his family at all, and he just basically ignores them and ostracizes them. That's kind of cool. But he dates super.
That's probably what you would do, right?
I'm thinking about doing it. Actually, I'm thinking about, basically just sealing up myself off from my family. So,
but I mean, if money is energy and power and time, and he's got all that.
Is that an equation?
And you had all that. You'd probably, I think you would do away with everyone.
Maybe they're all trying to hit him up for money. And he's like, dude, no. Yeah. What is that equation? Money equals power and energy and time? Jeez. What an equation. Power plus energy? Power times energy? What is this?
I just mean, if you had his money, you'd probably have cut everyone out already. Oh. You're still using them.
Yes, I still need to stay on their good side just in case there's ever an inheritance in the future. You don't want to piss everyone off. So
I don't think he needs an inheritance.
Well, how much do you think he has?
500 million.
Probably. Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah, so he doesn't have to worry about that. So he's cutting out all the bullshit.
Being his family. His family. You never know someone's circumstances. Like, their family could be a bunch of jerks. But I always picture them just being like, hey, Aaron, are you coming over for Thanksgiving? And he just doesn't pick up his mom's phone calls. just leaves her text messages on red. Doesn't bother even responding back.
I like how my favorite thing about Rodgers is how he messes with the media.
How so? Like, he just lies to them?
Well, yeah,
Tries to give them sound bites?
Yeah, he just doesn't care. So he just like, he'll say anything, and the media will be like, and he's probably just like laughing at, like, behind the curtain, right?
Yeah, for sure. I do respect that about him.
And I like the family stuff you guys were talking about, like how much of that is just him fucking around with the media.
It's now he took it from the media to his family. He's just, I'll see you this year. Doesn't show up. He's laughing all the way.
Or at least that's what
that's what the media would have
know. Yeah,
you're right. And he's dated he dated Olivia Munn, Danica Patrick. I mean, the guys. We were talking about Josh Allen dating Haley Steinfeld, and there was an interview with him on Pardon My Take, where they were asking about the paparazzi, and he's like, it makes me sick, like, that they would try to snap photos of us, like, while we're, in private moments or whatever, public displays of affection and stuff like that. And I'm kind of like, well, that's what, when you're dating when there's two high profile people, like, he's not used to it, but they're gonna take pictures of you, like, they're not only that, the public wants to see it. If there's a picture of Haley Steinfeld and Josh Allen on social media, it's retweeted 1,000 times. It's shared and reposted, 10,000 times. It's people want to see that. They like that stuff. Bills fans and
I gotta be honest, I never heard of her.
I know. I know. Do you see pictures of her though? Now you know what she looks like, right? Now you know.
I guess.
Yeah. See,
what is she
gaining? She's younger, John. We're older, so. Yeah. So first things first. Oh, Mike, I didn't ask you how you're doing. Good. All right. Yeah. All right. Good. Good to hear. Good to hear. Anyway, so back to me. So first training camp storylines. Just some quick hitters before we get into biggest surprises. Jordan Phillips came off the PUP, the PUP list, and he was getting in some limited practice today, this being Sunday that we're recording this. So he is one of the 3 players that was on the PUP that's off the PUP. The other 2 players that are still on the PUP are Von Miller and Tyler Matakevich. So good news for Jordan Phillips. Still not 100% there, obviously, but he's getting in there. He's getting practice. I don't know. I think it could be an important part of this defensive line. So that was really good to see. I mean, I think we're all fans of Jordan Phillips on this podcast, so that was good to see. Cam Lewis, the cornerback / safety Cam Lewis, came up with an injury today while trying to intercept a pass. We're not sure how serious it is. He didn't return back to practice. We'll just have to keep you guys up to date next week when we talk again. But what's funny is, this, of course, happened because Cam Lewis was having, like, from all accounts, and we're going to talk about this a little bit later with, like, different media accounts talking about training camp, but from all accounts, it actually seemed like he was having a really good training camp, both at cornerback, both at safety. Like, he was making a name for himself as to be part of this, depth chart, this 53-man roster, which was kind of cool to see. People are arguing that, he might have a spot over Damar Hamlin. We'll see about that. But the injury today obviously stinks. Hope he gets better. Hope he's back by perhaps even the Saturday Colts game this next week. So we'll keep our eyes on that. Balin Spector, the middle linebacker, the 7th round pick out of Clemson last year, he has not seen any first team reps at middle linebacker since the 3rd day of training camp. Really, right now, the competition has been between Dodson and Bernard, both splitting first team reps. It feels like it's an alternating practice sort of thing. So Tyrell Dodson seems to be, at the moment, the leader in the pack at middle linebacker. But Terrell Bernard is not close behind. So we will see this. Dude, we're gonna talk about biggest surprises. I'm gonna give a big surprise right now. One of my biggest surprises in training camp is that Dorian Williams has not gotten any first-team reps, not even like a rotational. I'm not saying he has to start practice with the first-team defense, but just like not even getting any reps with the first-team middle linebacker. And it doesn't sound like he's getting any middle linebacker reps, which is kind of surprising. He's been mostly focusing as the backup outside linebacker. He's not even second-team outside linebacker, because if Matt Milano is out, it's usually Terrell Bernard in Matt Milano's spot. So Dorian Williams is not getting any significant snaps whatsoever. So kind of surprising to me. I'd say that's one of my big surprises so far in training camp is Dorian Williams and his lack of any sort of playing time.
Nate, I have to disagree. I don't think that's surprising. I think I said it earlier, like around draft time. I figured Bernard projected better to be middle linebacker and Dorian Williams to be better backing up Milano. Last year when Bernard played, where he had to fill in, he filled in for Milano. And it wasn't the best. I mean, he was a rookie too, but I think he was a little out of position. I think he's more naturally suited for middle linebacker. So I'm not super surprised at that. I'm also not surprised that it's close between him and Dodson. I didn't think them bringing Klein back was going to, I think that's just for depth. I don't think that's, to make a push for the starting spot necessarily. So and Spector, I think, is more of a special teamer. So I'm not surprised this between those two.
Well, what's funny is like Tyrell Dodson's a little bit older. He has more experience in the system. So he has experience on his side, whereas Terrell Bernard has youth, draft status. I mean, Tyrell Dodson wasn't an undrafted free agent, whereas Terrell Bernard was a third-round pick last year. So Bernard has that going for him. So it's going to be, it's interesting. But Dodson was backing up Tremaine Edmonds the last, 4 seasons? So like he has that leg up in experience. They're both roughly the same size. I was reading an article by Joe B today, and he was saying that Tyrell Dodson really excels in run stopping. Like he plays downhill. Which is kind of good to see. I think that's something we were missing a little bit with Tremaine Edmonds. I don't think Tremaine Edmonds was necessarily that sort of linebacker to play downhill a whole lot. But I guess where he said Dodson really struggled last season was play action. So he would bite a lot on that. And who knows if that's one of the major reasons why they brought in AJ Klein last season and he took over that middle linebacker spot when Tremaine Edmonds was out, because of his proclivity to bite on those. So we'll see. Did I use that word right? Proclivity?
It's a fancy word.
Fancy word. So
if you
I've only heard proclivity with regards to a sexual proclivity.
In regards to what specific sexual proclivity?
I guess I didn't know.
Yeah, sure, Mike. It's a proclivity in a Chris Hansen episode. Are you thinking of depravity? Okay.
No.
Okay, because that I've heard in regard to sexual depravity.
Maybe we're reading the same serial killer horror books.
We're watching the same Jeffrey Dahmer documentary. Yeah. So we're keeping tabs on the middle linebacker position. As far as cornerback 2 goes, which is the starting position opposite of Tre'Davious White, Christian Benford, for the most part, really hadn't seen any first-team reps at cornerback 2 in 3 or 4 practices. The competition, for the most part, was between Jackson and Kaiir Elam. That is until today, when they all mixed in with the first team. And Benford appears that he had the best day. He had a really great, he read Gabriel Davis in coverage really well, and forced Josh Allen to throw the pass away. And then in the second teamers, or at least against the second team offense, he had an interception against Kyle Allen. So interesting to see where that competition is going to go. It sounds like it's anyone's position right now. Any one of them could just step up. It's a good problem to have. Picking between three
certainly
starters.
In that case, they're all. I like all 3 guys, right? So I mean, whoever they. I mean, for me, I think it's surprising that Elam hasn't necessarily separated himself a little more. But I'm not surprised that Benford has played well and that Jackson has been doing well either. So I don't know.
Ooh, Benford is a 6th-round pick. If he gets a starting gig again this season, what a steal in the draft he could be, I love that. It's a good problem. Whereas middle linebacker, we're not really sure. Cornerback too. I don't want to say it's an embarrassment of riches, but it's a good problem to have. Kaiir Elam so one of my biggest surprises, I think, would kind of be Kaiir Elam, and the fact that, like, I guess I didn't expect him to get handed the job, but like through 3 or 4 practices, he wasn't getting a lot of first team reps, and he ended the season like remember the Bills Dolphins playoff game? Like, he had the play that ended the game where he had really good coverage on, I think it was Jalen Waddle. Like, he seems like a good player, but one of my biggest surprises is they do not want to hand him the job. And I don't know if there's something that we can't see behind the scenes. Maybe it's his study or prep or something like that. Conditioning, I have no idea. But like, it seems with the first round pedigree, with the fact that, he seemed to have had good experiences for the Buffalo Bills in a starting level role last season, I'm surprised that he's just not already named the starter, I guess.
Yeah, well, it's encouraging that they're just not going to hand even a first-round pick the starting job, right? They still have to earn it.
Yep.
So that's good. But we also, we've only had like a week of practice, right? Like, I guess training camp is just 4 practices now, but we have all of August and preseason to go, right? So, yeah. We'll see how it shakes out.
Yeah, definitely. As for right guard, now this has been a competition between Ryan Bates and Osiris Torrance. Ryan Bates being the incumbent veteran and Osiris Torrance being the second-round pick this year, the steal of the second round, in my humble opinion, IMHO. Torrance so it's so funny because you'll read different people's articles. So in reading, I guess the consensus seems to be that Bates is slightly ahead of Osiris Torrance at right guard. Like, Bates he may not have the athletic upside, he may not have the size of Osiris Torrance, but like, he has that. He knows the scheme really well. He's played in it. He has experience, and like, he just has more experience and chemistry along the line with Mitch Morse on his left side and Spencer Brown on his right side. So it's just something that I think Osiris Torrance, even if he's more gifted athletically, he's just not as versed in the scheme. He just doesn't have the chemistry yet with Brown and Morse. Like, there's just some things he's going to have to learn. And it sounds like, in some instances, Bates is just staying on his feet a lot better. Osiris Torrance has been put to the ground a few times, been letting pressure get through the inside, which is obviously a big no-no at that position. So we'll see. I'm going to head into another biggest surprise a little bit later about that, but those are the big training camp news and notes for this past few days. The Bills signed Andy Isabella. I mentioned that on the Thursday podcast with Thad Brown from WROC TV Channel 8. He's also on Buffalo Game Day Recap or Camp Day Recap, and then he's also Buffalo Kickoff Live. Like, that's really cool. It was a fun conversation. If you guys haven't heard that conversation, there's a lot of things that we've never covered before in the podcast previously, and that we're not going to cover today. So there's some really great tidbits from Thad there. So check that out. It came out Thursday of last week. But yeah, so let's go into biggest surprise, and then I'm going to read some tweets on that, and we're going to talk about red versus blue helmets. Mike, do you have a big surprise so far from training camp, or anything that you've noticed so far?
I would say for me, Nate, it's Dane Jackson getting the first team reps consistently.
Just to the fact that he's getting any first team reps, right? Like, they brought him back on a 1-year deal. It sounded like it was going to be between Elam and Bedford, like it was last year, and he's consistently seems to be getting. I don't know if it's been the majority of first team reps, but it seems like he's always been in the mix. Yeah, that's a big surprise. Good one. John, what about you? Do you have any big surprises from training camp so far?
Nate, nothing surprises me. But if I had to pick something, I mentioned it before. I thought Elam would have distanced himself a little bit, but it is early, and we
still have a month. We
got lots of time to go, so I guess we'll see.
So I think I like both of those, like the Elam thing.
Tomorrow is promised to no one. You guys are like, oh, we got all the time. Who knows? Who knows?
Wow. Well, nothing surprises John. So if one of us kicks it, of the three of us kicks it?
John, who of the three of us, who's going to die first, John?
Yeah, probably me.
Yeah.
I had my money.
Right.
I had my money on John or me too. Mike's too in shape and athletic to.
It's not me.
If Mike dies before us, John, it's going to be because he was running a 5K and his heart just gave out, like randomly in a freak accident.
He's running a 5K, got hit by a bus.
Yeah, that wouldn't surprise you though, would it,
That's
John?
No.
Be like, I saw that
Not at
coming. John, should I go to work tomorrow or should I just stay home?
You should go to
Please.
work.
Okay. Fine. So I had the.
John, have you thought of a scheme yet? Just to sidetrack for a second. Do we have any kind of schemes? Because I don't feel like going to work tomorrow either.
A scheme to not go to work?
A scheme to get rich so we don't have to go to work. I feel like that's the real American dream. Like people always talk about the American dream being like coming from another country, working hard and getting a good job. And that's not my American dream. My American dream is to be on an island, sipping
Not in
margaritas. Not in America. No, like an American Virgin Island, a territory of America still. But like, at a beach.
Where they still have like the stores that you like.
Oh yeah. There's
in the restaurant.
Yeah, there better be a McDonald's or
And
Golden Corral.
Applebee's,
Applebee's.
Chili's.
Well, that's where I'm getting these margaritas from, clearly. So yeah, that's my American dream, is to not have any alarm clocks ever, not just on the weekends. Of course, I have kids, so I don't really ever need an alarm clock. But like that idea, that's my American dream. Anyway, John,
before alarm clocks in England, they would actually have people that they'd pay to tap on the outside of the windows. They'd have these long poles, and they tap on the window to wake you up.
No kidding. John, you could have easily just made that up out of your behind, and I'd just be like, that sounds right. That sounds 100% like what. Like, what year are we talking? Like 1600s, or is it like?
Well, before alarm clocks, so whatever that was.
It was just after the invention of the window, so they had a window to tap on. Glass was just invented.
How would that person wake up? Just stay up all night?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, they'd have to. Yeah, because they also had people that before the street lights, they had people that would maintain those throughout the night and like have them lit and make sure they stayed lit and everything. So there are definitely jobs. I mean, there's jobs today where you have to stay up all night.
That is not the American dream. We were talking about the American dream, being on a beach somewhere, having to stay up all night. Man.
But they sleep all day.
Yeah.
Dude, we've done C-shift work. C-shift work is rough, man. Like, God bless everyone that does. I did it for like a day and a half. I wasn't there when Mike was hat in hand quitting to the supervisor, and the supervisor was totally cool about it. He's like, "Yeah, I figured." It's like, it's a shitty job. No one wants this job. We're paying you $15 an hour. We're paying for the same work of an experienced journeyman that gets paid $50 an hour. So I can see why you'd want to quit. Yeah, thanks.
Because it's negative 30 degrees, and when you walk outside, your whole body feels like there's pins being stabbed into it.
For those that don't know,
after your 15-hour shift.
Yeah, I was going to say, because we haven't talked about this in a few years. For those that don't know, we were talking about this beef company. I don't want to get too far into it, but you basically worked in a cooler and freezer all day in your 15 or 20-hour shift or whatever it was. So, in my head, maybe it's just the further I get away from it. I think we did a 23-hour shift in my head. I'm like, we worked basically a full week, a 23-hour shift. But yeah, you'd go and take your break after being in a freezer. They had a freezer that was, at least negative 30. And then you come out to your car in like thermals, because of course they didn't have a break room because it's a fucking freezer. So you could... If you use a microwave in a freezer, it would just make it slightly defrosted. And so we go into our car, take off our winter jackets in the middle of July and eat our sandwich. And we would just like sit there. Mike and I only did this, like we said, a couple nights. And we just sit there with our bagged lunches like, fuck, this sucks. This is the worst. And then we quit.
But your coat, like your sleeve, like every time you went to reach and take down a box above your head, like the meat juice somehow somehow in the freezer, the meat juice was still juicy and not frozen. So when you lifted the box above your head, it would just drain all down your sleeve.
Oh, geez, I didn't have that happen. I must not have been working as hard as you. Mike's like, I had a lot of meat juice in my shoes at the end of the day. In your Carhartt overalls. Jeez. Yeah. What were we talking about before that? What, schemes? Oh, yeah. People lighting torches in the street, lights.
Does it chap your ass at all that we could have bought up all the it was a perfect scenario with Josh Allen. We could have bought up all his rookie cards because we just got so jaded after 25 years. You know, how many saviors did we think we had? JP Lossman. Oh, it's been so many.
We could have spent $500 on like Josh Allen rookie cards
and be retired.
Yeah. The American dream. We would have been living the American dream if we had just bought low.
And we were front and center to that whole show.
Yeah.
John, I do blame you.
Yeah, John, where were you on that one?
There's definitely some resentment there. You were busy buying up O.J. Simpson cards.
It's a known commodity. John was figuring OJ would be dead by now, and that's all that stuff would be worth so much more. I'm holding on to like 2 or 3 OJ Simpson jerseys and helmets for when he's gone. That's going to be worth double, right?
I don't get rid of any Bill stuff, so I don't understand.
John,
well, the only thing that changes then that ceases to be that you can create more of, I guess, would be a signature.
Mm-hmm.
Right, because they can still print as many jerseys or helmets.
Yeah, so it would have to have been a rookie card that was signed.
I mean, when you're saying like, when
OJ, yeah,
OJ,
I gotcha. Yes.
If you get a signed glove, that would be pretty impressive.
It would be so good. It would be a black glove,
It'd be silver Sharpie.
Silver Sharpie. Oh, that's exactly what I was thinking. Silver Sharpie. Number 32 Hulk.
He would sign anything for money.
He would. Oh, man. I wonder if the families get that money because I knew they couldn't get his checks from the NFL retirement fund. Like that wasn't available, but like in the civil suit, but everything else was. He probably does it all under the table if he's smart. So, John, next time we're going to draft a franchise quarterback, please let us know if we should buy $500 or $1,000 worth of rookie cards.
Well, I mean, if the same, if it's still like Bean and McDermott, then yeah, absolutely.
Okay. All right.
I mean, we got to wait another, 10, 15 years until Allen retires, but
hopefully, fingers crossed. Fingers crossed he doesn't pull like an Andrew Luck and just retires early or something like that. So I probably shouldn't have even spoken that into existence. So one of the things, so we mentioned like biggest surprises at training camp. One of the biggest surprises to me is just like how many different reports I can read and I can get different feels for people or different opinions about how players are performing. I mean, we had Thad Brown on last week and he was singing the praises of Osiris Torrance. And then I'm reading Joe B's column and he's just like, he's not ready for the starting spot yet. So it's like, oh, maybe Thad was just excited in general that like he looked pretty good, but still not ready to start. But it's so funny. He's not the only instance.
Yeah, Torrance I think is going to be a stud. But I can understand why Bates is currently, because he's still got stuff to learn, right?
Yeah.
And Bates knows the system, like you said. But I think it's a matter of time. Torrance is going to be starting at some point.
It's only a matter of time, John says. Yeah. It's just funny. I think that's just that's just one of the examples. But like you read about Jackson, Elam, Benford, and you get different points of view on that. You talk about Terrell Bernard and Tyrell Dodson, and depending on the media reporter, this guy looks really good, this guy looks all right, this guy needs some work. It's interesting. And we haven't had that many competitions, if we're being honest, in the last few years. There's usually one, maybe, right? And then it's see from there. So yeah. All right. So the fun topic of the night, besides Josh Allen rookie cards, OJ Simpson signed stuff, the American Dream, freezing your butt off in a -30 freezer. Dude, those were big boxes we were carrying above our heads. Like that was like, we were 21, and like those were probably 80-pound boxes above my head. Like if I'm thinking out loud, like 80 pounds is a lot to hold over your head, especially like at the time I probably weighed like 160 pounds. So like, to me, that's half my weight above my head. So,
The best though, man, was when we would go into that other room when they were building this completely automated conveyor belt system.
So real quick, Mike, before you discuss the automated conveyor system, tell them what our job was, because we didn't really describe it. It was just in a freezer or cooler. That's all we said. Like, what was our actual
That's
job?
all I remember.
No, our actual job though was to like take these forklifts that were.
We had no training.
We had no training once. Maybe a 5-minute video, if that. And then, you would run through the entire warehouse, pick up boxes, depending on the slip of your order. And it could be at any place, like throughout this entire huge Amazon-like warehouse, right? And then we would take that and we'd take it to the...
Picture like the end of Raiders of the Lost Ark. That's what the warehouse looked like.
and then these other kids that definitely didn't want to be there would wrap up whatever you just packed into with that plastic saran wrap, right? That it would spin around, and then you'd be...
What an amazing job that was.
Yeah, I know. How the hell did we not get that job? Those kids quit early too. They're like, this sucks, right? And I'm like, you guys don't know shit. Like this, what we're doing sucks. You're just sitting here and saran wrap. Anyway, so, but yeah, the whole job was just to take all this product from the shelves in the warehouse to the trucks, right, as they were pulling up or whatever. So, Mike, continue the automated conveyor thing. So there was new construction in another.
So they were constructing another part of the warehouse with just this elaborate conveyor belt system that would essentially do all the work for you. And so all the workers, they'd be so excited, oh, when this gets done, it's going to make our job so easy. We're just going to kick back.
They're going to start
just looking at each other huh?
They're like, this conveyor is going to allow us to live the American dream. Our job sucks right now, but when this conveyor is built, our job's going to be so much easier, and we're going to make the same amount of money because that's how this works. I don't even think management told them that. I think they just thought that. They're just like, well, this can be the only logical.
They figure they're going to get raises.
They're okay. Well, we're going to be making more money, so why wouldn't we? Why wouldn't we get part of it, right? Isn't that how this works? Yeah, and then they laid off most of the workers, didn't they? After that went fully operational. Yeah, I feel like the guy that I was learning from specifically took me in that area. Oh yeah, man, this is going to be great. Okay. Doesn't that kind of replace what you do?
Make you completely redundant?
Robots work for a lot less money than you. Yeah. So, I forgot to read some of the answers. So I put that up on Twitter. I said, what are the biggest training camp surprises so far? And on Twitter, Andrew Insing writes, how bad Kyle Allen makes me want Case back, and that's bad. And that has to do, so Andrew's talking about the fact that there were 3 or 4 botched snaps. So Andrew said there were 5 botched snaps and 4 in a row between Kyle Allen and Mitch Morse. So that is very bad. It's one thing if Kyle Allen is throwing off or something and he's not having a great day, or he's missing some wide receivers, he's bouncing a few or whatever, that's bad. But if he can't just take the snap from the center, that's not good. That's not ideal. So that was a good one. Matthew,
does it really matter who their backup quarterback is? If Allen gets hurt, they're screwed, right? That's it. The season's over.
Yeah, good point. If Kyle Allen's in the game, we're in trouble. We're not winning a Super Bowl with Kyle Allen, right?
Or Barkley or Keenum or anybody, any of those guys. If Allen's out, they're done.
Yeah, I know we don't have a lot of money. I didn't love the Kyle Allen signing. I felt like there were better guys out there, but yeah, it's scary. If you see Kyle Allen in the game, just know that we're not going to win the Super Bowl if he ends up getting us there somehow. This isn't like Tom Brady, right? Joining, after Drew Bledsoe got the concussion. That's not this. So Matthew Lewis writes, biggest surprise, Dorsey motion and plays. But the fact is that Reggie looks like he'll be used a lot as well. So that was kind of cool, because I was reading something from the red and blue scrimmage, is that Dorsey was using a lot of motion. He was not only doing 12 personnel, which for those that know, obviously, I'm speaking for people that aren't familiar with 12 personnel. It means 1 is the amount of running backs in the formation, and 2 is the amount of tight ends. So if you hear 21 personnel, it's 2 running backs, 1 tight end. And then you can just figure the quarterback is 1, 5 offensive linemen. And that just tells you how many receivers are if you just do some math. So I was reading that they have 12 personnel. So they did a lot of 2 tight end sets, 12 personnel, 22 personnel I was reading about, and then some 13 personnel, which I don't know if I've ever heard those 2 numbers put together with a formation, because the Bills have never had 2 or 3 tight ends even worth putting on the same field. But it sounds like the Reggie Gilliam was that 3rd tight end. So that's kind of cool. Something a little different. It would be nice if Dorsey used all of the weapons at his disposal. Not only all the weapons, all the playbook, like motion. Like that was something that Dable did a lot of. And I guess we kind of just took it for granted. There was just not a lot of motion last year. It was just, we're lining up and we're going from this set, help your quarterback out. Let him take a look at the pre-snap, who's moving, who's not moving. Are they playing zone? Are they playing man? So Let's Go Buffalo writes a couple surprises. How good Leonard Floyd has reportedly been playing, how Dorsey is using Reggie Gilliam as a tight end, and how the Diggs drama has faded, and Diggs is flashing as the best player on the Bills. He says in parentheses, second best. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the other thing. If Diggs were to go down, it's basically the same scenario at this point. They're not going anywhere.
No, for sure. You're not going to replace that. Yeah. I like that. I like, Leonard Floyd, the news on Leonard Floyd. Heard some really good news on Greg Rousseau. He got a pressure against Deion Dawkins and Spencer Brown today on both sides, pass rushing. So that's good. Either that's really good for Greg Rousseau or that's really bad for our tackles. I can't tell. That's another thing about training camp. Like, so-and-so picked off, got interceptions. Like, well, is Josh Allen throwing the ball? Because that's not great. It's always that dichotomy of training camp. And I mentioned that Diggs drama lasted up until the first catch in training camp, and that was the end of it. Like that Diggs drama did not last very long. It was just we talked about that for a full episode, but that was just bad timing as far as the offseason goes. There's nothing going on. So Bills Mafia LGM, and I believe he has a lot of Puerto Rico flags. That's kind of what it looks like. It's hard to tell. He says Dorian Williams seemingly having no place here. That's his big surprise. Dorian, and we talked about Dorian Williams. Like, I'm kind of surprised by that, to be honest. I like that one. Kind of surprised. I know he doesn't like to start rookies, but I thought he'd be getting I don't know, maybe not reps over Balen Spector, but geez, like, not only that, he's not playing middle linebacker at all. I don't know. They had a hole there. I thought it would fill it a little bit. And the majority of Bills fans, when we did that poll and we did that whole podcast addressing the middle linebacker, we didn't think so because we know the Bills don't like starting rookies. But like the majority of Bills fans thought Dorian Williams was going to be the starting middle linebacker come week 1. And he's not even close. He's not even in the rotation to be starting middle linebacker. I want to say right now, he is probably 3rd in line for middle linebacker, 3rd or 4th in line for middle linebacker, and he's like 3rd or 4th in line for Matt Milano's replacement. Like he's definitely not going to get cut, but man, like I'm kind of surprised we haven't heard a whole lot about anything about him. David B. Bell writes that Khalil Shakir seems to be losing the grip on the number 3 wide receiver role. That's the biggest news from training camp, biggest surprise from training camp so far. I mean, I kind of thought he would kind of. Well, when they brought in Deontay Hardy and Trent Sherfield, he had some experienced veterans ahead of him. I guess I was hoping Khalil Shakir. I have high hopes for him in general, but I was kind of hoping he'd be good enough to take away that role. Carlin Sullivan writes, the least surprising is that Elam had to split reps with Dane Jackson, even though it couldn't be more obvious who the better player is. Yeah, that scares me a little bit, Dane Jackson. I feel like he's a known commodity at this point. Like, he's good, don't get me wrong. He's just not great. Like, Elam and Benford could potentially be great. Like, they have a higher ceiling, so it's kind of surprising. Those were the biggest surprises on Twitter. So we're going to talk about the red versus blue helmets. I mentioned earlier that Josh Allen showed up last season at the red and blue game, scrimmage or whatever you want to call it, practice at Highmark Stadium. He had the red helmet, and this year he was rocking the blue helmet. John, I'll start with you. What'd you think about which one would you choose? And I put a poll up on Twitter before we talk about it. Which one do you like better? Did you like the red one, the blue one? What's your favorite if you had to choose between the two?
The red one for sure. The blue washes out the blue buffalo. You'd have to change the color of the buffalo to make that. Or the buff would have to be red and the stripe would have to be white or something. Like it I don't think it works. So I'd go with the red for sure.
Mike, what do you think? Did you like the blue one, or do you like?
No, I don't like the blue on blue.
You don't like the blue on blue,
the
right?
Red's nice.
Yeah, I'm a fan of the red. What could they do to improve that though? So if you have your phone next to you or something, Google image the Josh Allen red alternate helmet. I think they need to add some white to that center line of the helmet, because right now it's just like blue. Like they need to make some changes. Basically, what I'm asking them to do is change this helmet to the red '90s helmet completely instead of just. If they add a little white to it, they put a number 1 and 2 and put Jim Kelly on the back. Yeah, that would be great. That would really help.
Yeah.
I mean,
I like the white helmets too, but like the red would be good also.
But look how this is why we talked about that. The alternate jerseys and helmets. Like they're not bringing the '90s helmets back this year. They've already told Sal Capaccio that they're not going to do it. And it's like, yeah, this isn't their preferred look, because I'm looking at a picture. It shows Josh Allen with a red jersey because he had a red jersey on last year because all quarterbacks had the red jersey on. That's their color rush jersey, right? So
the red jerseys are terrible.
The red jerseys I don't hate the red jerseys by themselves, but they look like complete wet trash garbage when you can combine them with the red helmet. Like it's just a clash, Doesn't look
I don't
good
like
at
it
all.
with the blue helmet either.
No, you know what? You're right. I don't like it with the blue helmet either. So the real answer is they need to bring this red helmet back, and they need to get a different color rush jersey. Can't they just do blue on blue? Just do blue on blue as your color rush, or white on white. Who cares?
Forget color rush. It's just, they're just trying. They just need another jersey for people to buy. Is all they're trying to do.
Yeah, like they can just don't make it a red jersey then. So that way you can bring the red helmets back. Like they could do that. They just don't want to change their red jerseys out for the color rush. That's all. So Mike, you're red, Mike's red, John's red, I'm red too. Like red is by far. I put a poll up on Twitter right before we started recording and asked what people thought. And as to no surprise, 74% of folks say Josh's red helmet last year compared to Josh's blue helmet this year. I think a lot of folks just like the idea of the Bills having alternate helmets, so they're going to say that they really like the blue helmet. I thought it was okay. That was all right. I still like the red helmet better.
What do you think of the standing buffalo?
Oh, I love the standing buffalo.
Me too.
What if they made that as an alternate helmet?
I'd be good with that.
Didn't they do that in the past? Like a red helmet with like a white standing buffalo instead of the white with a red? Like they reversed the colors? I feel like they did that.
I think I've seen that before, but I don't know if they played with it. I don't remember.
Yeah, me either. I do like the standing buffalo. So I do like that as their alternate helmet too, Like that's a good one. So, all right. Well, everyone agrees with us, so that must mean that we're right. It's the only conclusion I can come to. So, John, Mike, it's been a pleasure talking Bills with you. Camp surprises so far. It's going to be an interesting week this next week until we hear a little bit more news on everything. As I mentioned before, definitely check out that Thad Brown interview. It was really cool. I'm actually talking with Anthony Prohaska from Cover One this week, so I'm going to do another additional podcast on Thursday for that discussion. That we're going to talk about, training camp in general. And luckily, Anthony from Cover One, like he does the film room there. He does disguised coverage. Like he does a lot of cool stuff. So he knows a lot about football, a lot about coverages, a lot about, all the things that, we're a common fan. We're the common fan Bills podcast. That's what I'm going to label us as, by the way. I didn't tell Mike and John this, but we're the common fan Bills podcast. That's what I'm labeling us. Man, we're just like bring our lunch pail to work every day. Got a good motor, we're like that kind of podcast. So, but Anthony like understands like strategies, formations, position. I mean, he just knows that so well. So I'm going to ask him some questions about that. So definitely check that out. John, Mike, anything you want to add before we call it a pod?
Have you heard anything about any potential changes to the defensive scheme with Leslie Frazier being out this year?
So I asked Thad Brown about that, but he says it's just really hard to see in practice. Like, I mean, we mentioned the things about, formations and, motion and stuff like that in Ken Dorsey's side, but I think in defense, it's a little bit harder to see. But no, I've not heard something specifically pertaining to the defense under McDermott. I know Kaiir Elam was on a press conference and he mentioned that it's going to be aggressive. So that was kind of cool to see. That's kind of what we all hoped, but it was good seeing that from a player himself.
Cool.
So we won't see just like that screenshot of the Bengals game. We won't see 4 Bengals wide receivers, 1 Bills DB that's 4 yards off the line, and the other one's not even in the camera shot. Yeah.
Well, we got to switch from nickel to dime. That's the answer.
You did nickel to dime, exactly. Mike, anything else before we call it a pod?
That's it.
So thank you guys all for joining us. If you want to check out our TeePublic site, we have our entire store is 30% off. So that means $16 t-shirts, $14 tank tops. We have hoodies and long sleeve shirts, whatever you're into, mugs, coffee mugs, phone cases, anything you want. It's all 30% off right now. The link is in our show notes at the bottom. So just click that, tpublic.com/stores/CTW pod. So that's available. And of course, this episode is brought to you by the Twin Spires Sportsbook at Del Lago. The Del Lago Resort and Casino. If you haven't been there, it's really cool. We're really lucky that we have something like that so close to us, within driving distance. It's a really great place. Twin Spires Sportsbook in general, it's inundation in a really good way of all the different sports going on, whether it's football on a football Sunday, or it's during the NBA season, or hockey, or all of those seasons, baseball, they all got them going on. It's really cool. Yeah. So check those guys out over there. Highly recommend it. So signing off for John.
Go Bills.
For Mike.
Go Bills.
And for me, Nate, in honor of Marv Levy's 98th birthday this past week, where else would you rather be than right here, right now? Go Bills, and we'll talk to you guys again next week.
Buffalo, hey, let's go Buffalo, hey, let's go Buffalo. Find the sound in the parking lot. We got the tailgate down in our favorite spot. We're all fired up and our friends are here. We got some damn good food and a ton of beer. It's finally Sunday. We can't wait for the Bills to play. So kick it off, 12 men. Let's hear you scream. Let's hear you scream. Let's hear you scream. It's finally Sunday. We can't wait for the Bills to play. So kick it off, 12 men. Let's hear you scream.
Thank you for listening to the Circling the Wagons podcast. Download and subscribe to us in your favorite podcast service. Email us at ctwpod@gmail.com. That's Charlie Tango Whiskey Pod @gmail.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter at CTW Pod. And most importantly, go Bills!